Along with David Ross, Tim Kurkjian, I'm Karl Ravech. We are in Philadelphia, where, of course, Bryce Harper now calls home. Mike Trout, of course, grew up an Eagles fan, and he liked the Philadelphia Phillies, and there was even some hope at some point that maybe he'd end up here. When you think back to the 2009 Major League Baseball draft, Mike Trout was selected not first or second or in the top 10 or in the top 20. He went 25th. When you look at his early career, and he's the 25th pick in 2009, what do you say?
Well, to me, this speaks to how great baseball is that 24 teams missed on a guy that some people think someday is going to be the greatest player ever. How is this possible? It's possible because baseball is still a crapshoot compared to the other sports. And they all knew Mike Trout had some ability, but if anybody ever thought he would be this good, of course he would have been the number one pick. But in baseball, you're never quite sure if a guy's going to develop. You're never quite sure if that AA kid's going to be great someday. Basketball, you can watch LeBron run up and down the court about 10 times in high school and go, he can play in the league right now. Baseball doesn't work that way.
Imagine being like team 26 through 30 where Mike Trout may have fallen to you, and you, like 24 other teams, may have passed on him.
That's hard to think about, especially in the day and age we have all the information now, and these teams got a lot better with this with this drafting process. But you're going to kick yourself if you're the 24 teams and you missed out on Mike Trout.
Right. So Trout goes 25th in this draft, and since we're 10 years removed, and you mentioned the numbers now kind of give you a little better insight, but as Brian Cashman has pointed out recently with regards to the moves he's made, filling some of the holes for the injured players, this is all hedging bets. That's all this is. And the rest of these names that showed up in 2009, you'll remember, most of you, that Steven Strasburg was the number one overall pick, and he really shined for the Washington Nationals, not like Mike Trout, but there's no one on this list that I see, maybe with the exception of the guy that was taken 59th, who's even been in the same category as Mike Trout. He's such an outlier that if you took him and removed him, then you can say, okay, well, I guess Arenado, who would you take number 2?
Well, I would take Arenado number 2, and you would too, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
And why would you take him number 2?
Well, I love knowing Arenado. I mean, just his presence, obviously his numbers speak for himself, but Gold Glove D, he brings every day. He's got leadership qualities as well as a bat. I don't care about the Colorado thing, but I also, I might take the Strasburg. Strasburg's pretty good, number 2. I like pitching.
Yeah.
But the lesson there is that in the history of the draft, which is the mid-'60s on, only 2 guys have been the overall number 1 pick and have made it to the Hall of Fame. Ken Griffey Jr., Chipper Jones. That's it. That's the list. You would think the overall number 1 pick, there has to be more than 2 Hall of Famers. But it took all this time to just find those 2 guys to go in, speaking again to how difficult the drafting process can be in baseball.
You were drafted in what year?
I was drafted in 1998. 1998 in the 7th round.
How familiar were you with, like Dustin Ackley, I remember, you couldn't get him out. He was, at least when you watched him, as sure a thing at the Major League level as you'd ever see, and that didn't work out. How aware were you in 1998 of the other guys that were in the draft, and what did they pan out to be that you remember?
Well, I just remember my draft class with the Dodgers. Bubba Crosby, who was a stud. Scott Proctor in my hometown at FSU. Some guys that went kind of high. But yet there's so much pressure on those first-rounders, too, to develop and blossom into something. I think it really is a crapshoot of what's going to go on in the minor leagues, how it plays when you get to the wooden bat.
Sure.
I mean, this is a grown man's league. You got to continue to develop. Right. And some guys get lost in shuffle, some really good players. And then do you have a spot for you when you get up there? There's who was behind Pudge Rodriguez as a catcher for a long time in Texas. I always think about those things.
How did you find out you had been drafted, and when did you find out?
We were in the College World Series, and I got off the plane and landed in Atlanta, and I went to a payphone and found out I was cell phone. That's a little crazy to even think about that now, but that's how I found out I was drafted.
Other players taken in the 09 draft late. Paul Goldschmidt, 246. Matt Carpenter, 399. J.D. Martinez went in the 20th round at 6'11". Wow. These guys were all notable late-round draft picks. I think Tom Brady is kind of the guy, when you think about late-round draft picks, who have exceeded every expectation. It happens a lot more in baseball than football.
But Tom Brady was like a 7th-round pick or something. Mike Piazza was a 62nd-round pick.
As a favor.
And went on to become the greatest hitting catcher of all time. And you're right. They did it because as a favor to the Piazza family, Tommy Lasorda said, all right, we'll take your kid, all right? And he ends up doing stuff no catcher's ever done.
I think everybody knows that story, but then you look at Pujols and Smoltz. I mean, you're talking about 13th round? That's after I got drafted. That is insane to me. This guy's one of the best hitters of my generation. To think he went in the 13th round. That's when you say. There's a funny story. A GM told me one time. He's like, the first 7 rounds are the guys who got a chance to make it. After that, we're drafting guys to play catch with them.
Not
anymore.
Not anymore. No. And it's like your own children. You see them when they're 4. You see them when they're 14. You see them when they're 24. There's no connection to the 4-year-old to the 24-year-old. Right. There's no connection. It's an imperfect science that they're trying to master. That's David Ross, Tim Kurkjian. I'm Karl Ravech.